Welcome to the 30-minute hour. It's the personal development podcast for the seven-figure entrepreneur who's looking to level up and become unstoppable. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner. Joining me as always, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all-around good guy, Ted Fells.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday.
That's right. It is certainly a happy Monday because today we're going to talk about how to automate and dominate your industry. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that. Our guest is going to drop some serious knowledge. He's done a lot. I mean, one of the things he's partnered with over 30 partnered on over $30 million in real estate syndications. We're going to talk about that here in just a second as far as how he's done that and how you can duplicate similar success in your industry or even in the real estate industry. But please know.
Go ahead. Can we also talk about how I can get one of those hats? I kind of like that Thor hat.
I know.
That was a cool hat. He was looking like, yeah, I'm going to help you dominate and I'm going to show you guys how to rock this hat. So that's a cool hat.
He is definitely rocking the hat. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So those of you that are listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all those places, you need to go back and check out the YouTube so you can see Chad's hat. And maybe one day get one for yourself.
That's right.
Oh man! So as Chad is starting to see, this is not your everyday podcast.
No.
We do things a little different around here, Chad. Yeah, but no, but also you guys can listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any of those platforms. You can also watch us live or watch the recording on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. But we're going to get right to it. How to automate and dominate your industry. Our guest, he started his entrepreneurial journey at a young age by starting a landscaping company and an electronic arbitrage business in his teenage years. He then quickly focused on investing in the equities and currency markets. He later became a full-time investor and real estate entrepreneur in his 20s. And like I mentioned earlier, he's partnered on over $30 million in real estate syndications. Please join me in welcoming to the 30-minute hour, Chad Wittfeldt.
That's an incredible introduction, gentlemen.
Welcome, Chad.
Appreciate y'all having me.
Yeah, man, it's an honor to have you on the show. Let's get right to it. How old were you when you started your first business?
I was 16 years old.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And, it's so funny, when a lot of guys, it seems like a lot of guys when they first get started in the business and they tell their rags to riches story, right? They have this remarkably well thought out, proclaimed journey and vision from zero to hero of why they started their company and this massive passion. I didn't have that, right? I was just a money hungry little kid. And I just wanted to have a couple shekels in my pocket. And that was the motivation to start my first company. And truth be told, it really wasn't much of a business. It was just a job that I owned, right? I was 16 years old. I wasn't very proficient in systems and processes and KPIs and building a team and all these components that I now obviously embody in all of my companies. But so that business never really outgrew myself, So I think a lot of entrepreneurs today find themselves in that same place,
Yeah, that's interesting. I was just thinking that as you were saying it. There are quite a few that own a job because they don't have. But you saw that at a young age that, you know what, I need to do something different. So if you could go back and be a mentor to that 16-year-old version of yourself, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I think to be honest with you, looking back on it, I think it played out perfectly the way that it did. I think it played out perfectly because oftentimes it can be really challenging to take unwarranted advice, right? Like oftentimes experience is always going to be the best motivator and educator. And especially at that young age, 16 to, I would argue, even 23, 24. as a young man, it's hard to be told what you should do. Oftentimes, at least for me, at least for my ego, I had to go do the thing myself. I had to go learn it myself. And so I'm not sure at that age I was taking advice, to be frank. So, but in retrospect, I think being very, very perspicacious of the opportunity vehicle you decide to embark on. I think that would be my ultimate advice, no matter what. Right. Being able to pick a solid opportunity vehicle. And for me, it really has to meet 3 criteria. One, I only like high ticket. I'd rather sell $1 million deal than 100,000, $1,000 widgets or whatever that have you. Right. So high ticket. Number 2, MRR needs to have monthly recurring revenue, cash flow. Number 3, it needs to be sellable. So those are my 3 components to choosing an opportunity vehicle.
Okay. So it needs to be high ticket. It needs to have recurring revenue, and it ultimately needs to be sellable.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, would you say that you were just one of these born entrepreneurs? It just came natural to you, or?
I'm not so sure. I think from the business-minded perspective, no. I don't think I just had this knack for business and finance out the gates. However, I do think I had the natural gift of grit and hustle. And so I think it was just only a matter of time to walk down that road. But in general, business acumen, no, I don't. It took me years to finally get it together. Right. So I failed my first, like I said, that first company, it wasn't more than me and a couple guys going around landscaping. Granted, that company made 6 figures, right? But my next business failed at 21. My next business after that failed at 23. That one left me penniless, and I had to go through a whole new reiteration of life from there. So I went through seasons. I was a failure for a long time in my entrepreneurial journey before life got good. So,
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, because you don't see that a lot on Instagram with entrepreneurs. They're standing in front of their Tesla, whatever car. You just see the good side. So I'm just curious, based off of that, what advice do you have? There's somebody that's watching us right now. They're in that failure season. And based on your experience, what advice do you have for that person?
Yeah, I think for me, being able to see yourself on the other side before you're there, right? And so when I was in that season of failure, you're really only faced with 2 options. You can either keep walking or you can sit down. And ultimately, both those paths might look hard. So you have to choose your hard, right? And choosing the hard of keep going looks and feels a lot easier when you can truly envision yourself on the other side of it. Right. And so at 23, when I failed my second company and was left penniless, I was parking cars in valet in downtown Denver 40 hours a week just to keep the roof over my head. Right. And trust me, it gets cold and snowy and windy in Denver in the winter. Right. It was not a fun life. Right. The other 30 hours a week, I was trying to put some real estate deals together, and within that first year, between 23 and 24, I closed on my first real estate deal. That doesn't necessarily mean all the pain went away, right? It takes with large commercial deals, especially when you only own a very small percentage of the pie, you're not necessarily making it big right then and there. However, this went on for a couple years. And through that, I can't even begin to tell you how many times I would go home and just want to quit, because I had a college degree. I was fairly charming, outgoing guy. I could go get any 6-figure sales job in Denver easily, And I chose to stick with my pain. I chose to keep going because I knew eventually on the other side of it, it would all be worth it. And I think that's this uncanny confidence that I don't know if you can teach it. It's this overwhelming place of confidence in yourself, your own ability to perform. And I think I was born with that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so Ted, I definitely want to loop you in because you and I, we've talked about this on our Thank God It's Monday episodes about not quitting, and you've had your company for 27 years, and I'm sure you
Yeah.
can relate to some of the things that Chad
Man, I feel
felt
like
wanting to
quitting. I
quit.
feel like quitting right now. I feel like quitting right now. Right? You talking about I can relate. Absolutely. I'm in the spirit of quitting right now. Matter of fact, I quit. I'm quitting today. No, man. So I get what you say, Chad. I mean, I tell people all the time. I said, when they talk about wanting to get into business, and I say, but do you want your own business or do you want to make a lot of money? Right? Because you can have your own business and not make a lot of money. Like you got your own business when you're failing. Like when there's no money, you got your own business. You still got a tax ID. You still have something connected to you. You got some debt connected. You got something connected to you still. You got a stack of business cards. Something is connected to you still, right?
Right.
So in this, man, I had someone say to me one time, said, Ted, have you ever thought about quitting? I said, because it was a tough season, right? So you ever thought about quitting? He said, are you concerned that the people that we know will think you are a failure? And I was like, well, first, my faith says, I'm not quitting. I'm not a failure regardless, right? Because there's always people that look at you and say, man, I wish I had done what you've done.
Yeah.
Like there's someone that's always going to think, man, that you're a success based on you got a website, you're a success, right? You got business cards, you're a success,
Right.
man. You pay yourself, right? You can come to work and leave, whenever you want. Like you're a success, right? So at that point, I mean, you're already a success in someone's eyes, right? But I mean, for me, at the end of the day, it's like, look, I'm in this thing, man. I'm not trying to quit. I can't see myself going back working for someone. I can't see it like that. Like what?
Yeah.
Like you want me to do what? When I'm used to doing it the way I want to do it. I'm used to calling shots. I love strategy. I love the hunt. Right? There's nothing like the hunt because when you finally catch, it's nothing like that. And I can't have anything that would be like that working for someone, right? I compare it to sports, right? And everybody's like, man, why doesn't Michael Jordan or Tom Brady or LeBron, why don't they retire? Because it's nothing like when you come out on the field and you hearing those cheers. It's nothing like the fourth quarter. I'm sure Tom says, man, all right, we're down by 7. Let me take this ball the length of the field. It's nothing like that. So I compare that to business. It's nothing like when it's yours, right? And when you're like, okay, I got to figure this thing out, even though I'm in a tough season. Because like you said, Chad, once you get to that place where you're thinking, what's it going to be like once I get that behind me? It's like, you're just trying to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%, man. And just to echo off that too, like, number one, it's not for everybody, plain and simple, right? 99% of the people, they want the end result, be their own boss, write their own checks, have the CEO on the door, da, da, da. They don't want all of the steps it takes to get to the end result, right? And so, truth be told, I was the failure for 6 years, right? And in that place, being ages 21 to, I probably didn't like really start figuring it out to like 27, like where I was starting to consistently crush 6 and 7 figures in business over and over and over again, right? And so for 6 years, everyone around me, young guys graduating college, going out, getting their jobs, making 6 figures, buying the car, going on vacations, going to shows, right? What most people don't understand is the level when you're in a place of failure, trying to get yourself out of it towards success. You better be comfortable and confident saying no. You're going to spend a lot of time. People are going to invite you to go do this thing. Nope, sorry, can't do it. Right. And eventually you just stop getting invited. Right.
Right.
Now that I'm 30 and I have unwavering confidence, I don't really care. Right. I don't really want to go to the concert anyways. I got better things to do. But at 20, 21, 23, it's not so easy when everyone around you is having so much fun. However, on the other side of that, when you make it to the other side, you're going to have a lot of people say, man, I wish I would have done what you did, man, because I got all the freedom in the world for myself. And it's just been an interesting journey, to say the least.
Yeah, I think one of the big takeaways is that freedom isn't free.
No, it costs something for sure.
It's a cost.
Yeah.
So
this
is good stuff.
The rent on that needs to be serviced every day. I can't even begin to tell you the amount of young entrepreneurs that I know that will hit that 6-figure a month revenue in their company. I'll do it for 3-4 months, go off, think, oh man, I got this multiple six figure a month business. I'm going to go live the life. And they remove themselves from the company without putting the systems and leadership in place so that the company continue to run with them fairly well removed from operations and the finances of the business, etc. So they take their foot off the gas too soon. Boom, business falls on its face. Right. So,
yep, the rent, like you said, the rent is due every day. I am curious, what was it that motivated you to start investing in like the equities and the currency markets?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So I got at 15 years old, I got a job as a busboy at a country club. It was a fairly affluent country club. And I slowly worked my way up to the bartender in the men's grill, right? And this is where the big shots went to go drink and gamble and smoke cigars and get away from their wives. And these guys were, great people, fantastic people, extremely successful in their own rights. And this one guy, I just developed a really fantastic relationship with him. And he was a big dog at a hedge fund. And I had just always found it in how, price arbitrage was such an interesting concept. And so we would just hang out and talk about stocks and equities and price arbitrage and all these things. And that's ultimately what led me to opening up a stock account at like 17 years old in my dad's name, because I think at the time you needed to be 18 years old. I wasn't even old enough yet. And I just found it so fascinating. Been rocking ever since. So
that's the part of what you do today. And so today you help the real estate entrepreneurs specifically to automate and dominate their industry. So what do you like? How specifically do you do that? How do you help these real estate entrepreneurs dominate and automate?
Yeah. So we work with commercial real estate funds and operators, right? So these are pretty large groups that are syndicating either multifamily apartment buildings or self-storage facilities, right? And so that industry was like the old school, good old boys industry for quite a long time. It still kind of is. And so it's not uncommon to go find a team of operators that have over $100 million in real estate under management, and they're still running their process on an Excel sheet or a Rolodex on their desk. Oh, I'm going to call John. I got a deal. I'm going to call John. He's always good for like 150 G's. Let's hit him up. Right. And so, yeah, it's worked, but it's not necessarily the most optimized way to get them to that next level where they're typically trying to go. And so what my team does is we come in, build out their entire customer acquisition process for accredited investors and for deals, using some of the most robust technology that I've personally ever seen in the industry. So we systematize, automate, and then get their team up, trained, ready to go, run them up to KPI, and take waterfall into equity and do a lot of our opportunities. And so that's how I still continue to acquire positions in real estate to this day.
And so you'll coach the entrepreneur one-on-one, step by step through the process.
We actually offer a done for you model, right? So we don't bother we don't, it's funny is I've tried to do that before and it's really challenging. It's much easier for my team to just come in and say, hey, this is how it goes. This is what's done. And we go out, they fill out an intake form. We build everything completely custom to their needs, to their brand, to their voice, etc. Build out our customer acquisition model and then plug their team into it. So train them on it and ramp them up on it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So why do you think that works better for you than the more traditional model of, I guess, coaching them through, walking them through the process?
I would say coaches, it's one of those things, man. Oftentimes I think coaches can be perceived as better at teaching than doing. And we're just really, really, really darn good at what we do.
Okay.
And I think when we just do it, I don't want my I want my operators in their creative genius, right? I want them out there finding deals, operating deals, putting deals together, running the market, right? I don't need them wasting their time on something that is completely out of their wheelhouse and it's my superpower, right? And so I think, and we come into these companies as growth partners, right? We're not just a night by day agency who sets something up once and then runs away. We come on as growth partners, and I have a very, very strong passion that you really never need to partner with somebody who's exactly like you, right? Let's just use an arbitrary example. Let's just say John he's worked in sales for one of the largest Fortune 500 companies, and he wants to start a sales education program. So he goes to his buddy Ted, and Ted was a top sales guy for another Fortune 500 company. They have the exact same skill set, the exact same experience. Why do you need to partner with somebody exactly like you? You need to partner with people that embody your weaknesses as their superpower, right? And so these guys are coming to me. They don't have a clue. Why do I need to teach them how to do it when I got it down absolutely surgically lethal to come in and implement this thing and get it ramped into their business in no time, right? It just doesn't make sense. So,
yeah, it's interesting. Ted and I talk about this all the time about the whole partnership dynamic. Having aligned values. You want to have aligned values, aligned goals, but you want to have complementary skill sets.
Yeah,
we talk about that all the time. So I'm glad you're echoing that as well.
I genuinely feel like a misalignment and a misaligned partnership can be the quickest way to fail a business easily. And that's been my own personal experience. I've had 2 businesses go under because misaligned partnership agreements. So,
it seems interesting though when I listen to you and you saying the role that you play as a growth partner, like that client has to be comfortable in knowing, okay, Chad and those guys are doing this. I'm not trying to have Chad and those guys do this for me to learn to do it and kick Chad out. Like it's got to be, they're okay with everybody making their money, right?
Oh, of course.
They make their money, Chad makes his money, and they focus on what they do. And, but oftentimes I think, companies, individuals, they, as much as they can kind of bring, business development in-house, they tend to try to do that. So, I mean, have you come across that type of situation where they're like, yeah, we just want to know the secret sauce and then you can go?
Yeah. I have, especially earlier on in my career doing this. And I tried to accommodate those individuals. And oftentimes I have a saying, and it's a team only, right? So everybody in my life, from my friend to my significant other, to the people I do business with, a team only. If I'm stacking my team, I want Jordan, I want LeBron, I want Steph Curry, I want the A team only, and I don't got room. I don't got room for Bs. I don't got room for C players or bench warmers. I don't need you. I don't want you. Somebody down the street will love you to death. Sorry, my man, it ain't me. I just rock A team only, right? And I think 99% of the time, the companies who who are still struggling, they're trying to use a business developer in-house who's clearly not an A player because they would be across the finish line if they were. Right. So I don't really care to take a C player that I don't even have on my own team. I have very little authority and leadership over them. They don't know me, Adam from Eve, and try and make them into an A team player. Like, I'm good.
Wow.
And, you know, so yeah.
That is something, Eric. Cause I just started thinking about my list of people. I'm like, I might need to start cutting some folk off, right? You know? Like, yeah. You know, Tom, young man, look, Tim, like, it's not working, right? You're not, you know.
Yeah.
Like, but I get it though, man. I mean, I guess it's, you know, it just, if you get the best team possible, you know, you're high performers, right? You know, that's where you got to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you share with us, Chad, a memorable example from one of these companies you went in, you did your thing, and they just went to a whole other level and haven't looked back?
Yeah, for sure. And I can also do the opposite as well. I can tell you a story when the opposite happened. But yeah, I mean, what I was alluding to earlier, you know, coming into a company, I think at the time they had 80 million under AUM, assets under management. They're managing their investors on a spreadsheet, and they decided to launch a $25 million fund. Right. And so when you fill a fund, a Reg A plus fund, it looks quite a bit different than filling like a 506C syndication. Right. With a Reg A fund with 25 million, you can go out and typically buy like another $100 million of assets. Right. And using that fund as liquidity for down payments and things of that nature. Right. So it looks a lot different. And they were under the assumption, well, we got to 108 million, or what did I say, 80 million of assets under management. We're good. You know, we can fill this fund, no problem. But their Excel sheet of investors, they were tapped. All their funds were wrapped up into the previous deals that they had just done over the last 3 years. And none of them cycled back to put all the money back into their investor database pockets. All right. So when they went to go raise for that fund, I mean, it was crickets. You know, it was complete cricket. So then they did, you know, what we were talking about earlier. They assigned somebody in their internal team to start running on the development side of, you know, building things out and acquiring new investors and this, that, and the other thing. And again, still crickets, no results. Right? They're spending money on ads. They're not getting any result. They're spending money on ads. They have no way to track things. They're hiring an appointment setter. They don't even know. They can't even measure how many calls per day that appointment setter is running. They can't even measure the talk time. They can't measure the set rate. They can't measure anything because none of it was systematized and tracked. Right? And so I'm able to come into the company, put all of these parameters in place, and make it so linearly developed where you know exactly where things fall through the cracks. And so good sales teams love us. Bad sales teams hate us because we can call out their BS. Oh, he'll go, oh, John, you know, these leads suck. Well, dude, I can see right here, your time to dial was almost a day and a half. Meaning a lead would come into the system and you wouldn't dial them for a day and a half. I don't want to hear it. You know, so everything is just completely validated, tracked, because obviously, in my personal opinion, what you can't measure, you can't optimize. Right. So yeah, nonetheless, long story short, after we put our processes in place, we filled that fund in a month and a half. So
that's a great story. And so what advice do you have for the entrepreneur who they haven't invested in real estate, but they're looking to get started? What advice do you have for that person?
Yeah, I think the most important component, especially it's really in that space and really any space, don't fall subject to shiny object syndrome. Right. It's very, very common in real estate because you have a million different strategies. You can wholesale, you can Airbnb arbitrage, you can fix and flip, you can syndicate, you can lease option. Like there's so many different ways. Right. And the most common pitfall is that you go find one, so you see some Facebook ad for some guy who's got this incredible wholesaling system. So you sign up, you pay him $997 and get the system, and you go at it for a month, right? You go at it as hard as you can. Oh, I got all this set up, but I can't get a deal. Oh, well, here's another Facebook ad. Let me go try Airbnb arbitrage, right? And so the perpetual cycle of amateur failure repeats itself, and it is one of the saddest stories, right? So picking an opportunity vehicle and sticking with it and actually putting the inputs of parameter in place. And I'll tell you what that looks like. Right, so oftentimes when I have these conversations, these guys, oh, that doesn't work in today's market, right? Let's just use wholesaling as an example. You can't wholesale anymore because the interest rates are crazy and people aren't loading deals and there's too much demand for creative financing and right? And then you just start uncovering and asking questions. Okay, gotcha. Like, I'm just curious, man. Like, how many dials per day are you making right now? Oh, well, I don't know. I had to change my dialer, but I think like last week we made like 50 dials but I'm not sure about tomorrow. And they got every excuse under the book, right? And the story continues, right? So it's really just doing the simple, boring, nitty things in a long enough period over a long enough cycle to know if it actually works or not, right? And so I just think too many people are not only willing to jump ship too quickly without even putting the input to see if the output is valid. Right. It's way easier to write it off and say, oh, this doesn't work than to keep doing something with no result for a prolonged period of time. And doing that with the same vigor that you started with. Right. Because trust me, it ain't gonna work the first time, it ain't gonna work the second time, it ain't gonna work the fifth time. Right. The guys I know who crush it in any industry, in any business, they just test and test and test and optimize and test and test and test. They'll fail 10 times just to win once. They don't care. Mm-hmm. And they never lose their vigor. They just keep going because all it takes is one. That's the thing, guys. It only takes one.
Yeah, all you need is one yes.
100 times.
Yep.
You just win once, you're good. It makes up for the 100. But we live in this perpetual state of instant gratification, especially with young men, right? They want the result, they want the win, they want the validation so quickly, and that's just not how the world works. So prepare yourself for that, and you can go a long way.
Yeah. There's so many things I would say to that. I mean, because that is accurate. But I think everybody is after that hack. Right. And that's what a lot of the books. Oh, here's the hack. Here's the shortcut. And then when they get it and see that it's work, they want to abandon it until they find the next shortcut.
Exactly. It's just pure laziness and unrealistic visions and expectations. Like I was saying earlier, I grew up in the Midwest, and I think one of the largest common traits of guys from the Midwest is a good work ethic, right? Mm-hmm. And often, like, I was just instilled with that at a young age, and so it just doesn't bother me. I fail so many times to have some success, and I think ultimately it really derives from one, social media, right? People don't want to get invalidated by people's viewpoints of their failure. And if you're dead in the water, if that's where you're at, if you genuinely care what other people think of you because you're 25 trying to start a business and homeboys whipping the brand new Charger and you're pushing the Prius and you're embarrassed by that, like, you're never going to get there. Like, it takes time, it takes sacrifice. It really takes not caring, because you already see yourself at the end.
For sure. So I know entrepreneurs are constantly asking you questions, both inside and outside of real estate. What's one question you never get asked that you wish they would ask you?
Oh man, that's such a fantastic question. I think I wish there was more light shed in this space on what is it all for, right? Why are you actually doing this thing, right? Because I see this happen time and time again, and it really culminates from all of the pillars of being a man, right? A lot of guys, they want the money because it resembles status, right? A lot of guys want to be remarkably in shape because it resembles status. A lot of guys want the 10 out of 10 supermodel because it resembles status, right? So if you find yourself wanting these components and these pillars of life for status on the front of it, you can ultimately end up chasing the wrong thing and hiding behind one of the pillars, right? So let's just use an example. We've all seen the guy who's just remarkably in shape, but he's broke, living in his mama's basement, right? We've all seen the guy with more money than we can even fathom, but he's out of shape and his wife doesn't even want to make love to him, right? And so all of these pillars create the culmination of who you are, and you have to drive them from the foundation of yourself, right? If you're doing it for outside validation, you're going to do it for the wrong reasons. It's not going to end up lasting. And so for me, success in business, having my health, having a strong relationship with my partner, having a strong relationship with God, right? Having these pillars so that the culmination of all of this creates a unbreakable foundation within myself, right? And so, yeah, I just think so many different times people put merit to one or two of them and not all of them. And you can get led down the wrong path pretty quickly.
Now, did you always kind of get that, or did you evolve? Was there a time when you're like, you know what, I'm trying to be a billionaire, I want the status, and then, or did you just ultimately evolve to the point of where you are now?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Truth be told, yeah, I went through seasons of it, because when I was broke trying to make some money, I let my health sacrifice, I let my social life sacrifice, and really just my spirituality completely. And this might sound shallow. However, I feel like it's like if you can only pick one, I personally feel like you need to pick the money first. Right? Because if you're broke, you simply can't provide. You're not going to find an incredible woman I personally don't feel like you're going to find an amazing woman when you're broke. Personally, I haven't seen it. I think maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago you could. However, today, the modern day woman in society, I don't think that exists. Right? And truth be told, how can you provide and lead a good woman when you can't even provide and lead yourself? Right? So for me, getting to the money was first, and I did make sacrifices to get there. But once I started, getting a couple shekels in my pocket, I was able to pull back, get my health in order, right? Reinvigorate my relationships and all of these components, right? But I personally feel like the other reason why I put a lot of merit into making the money first, I think that first 100K liquid you can put somewhere, it changes a lot of components of your life, right? You're no longer in a place of, I got to pay this bill next week. Oh shoot, I got groceries coming up. I got my insurance coming up. I got my phone bill coming up. Like you got 100+K pretty liquid. It's kind of just all relatively the same. And then you can start operating out of a framework of abundance instead of scarcity. Right. So I think that's a great number for young men to get towards as quickly as possible. And you will and should make sacrifices to get there quickly. Right. Because truth be told, when you're 21, 22, 23, all your friends are doing is partying and screwing off anyways. Right. And then they're going to be 30. They're going to have 10K in their bank account. You're 30. You got a couple $100,000 in cash and assets. You're living a lot better life. I can guarantee you. Sacrifice a couple of years of the crap that you're not going to miss anyways. It's just that's just how I roll personally.
Fantastic. All right. So we're at the final segment of the show. This is actually Ted's favorite segment. It's called Write This Down. This is where we each go around and leave at least one takeaway from this episode that we want the people to write down so they can level up. So Chad, you're the guest of honor. what do the people need to write down from this episode?
Write down, you are never a product of your environment. You're always a product of your decisions.
Whew. Goodness gracious. Can you say it again for the people in the back? That was profound.
You are never a product of your environment. You are always a product of your decisions. And I hold that near and dear to my heart because it pulls ultimate ownership over everything around you. Somebody T-bones me in my car, is my fault. My girlfriend's mad at me, my fault. I lost $100,000, my fault. Everything's my fault. And when you have extreme ownership of every single thing that you do, you embody a mindset that 99% of other people don't have. And it allows you to just completely run them over. And so it's a fantastic mental model.
Totally agree. Definitely write that down. All right, Ted.
And I don't even know how to follow behind that. I mean, really, I don't even know how to follow behind it. I mean, this has been just an interesting conversation, man, and just your perspective on things, right? And again, this is Chad's perspective. He's got a right to give his perspective in this. But a lot of stuff I think about, like, man, okay, I see what he's saying there. And I started thinking about some things. I don't know if this is necessarily a write it down, but it just made me think about something. Like I thought, think about, kind of like, are you built for this, right? Maybe that's the thing to write down. Are you built for this, right? I think about as a kid, right? I remember I had a friend, and this will just tell you how long ago this was. Chad, you may not even remember this. Like, this is back in like video games with like Atari, right?
Yeah.
And I had a good friend of mine, man. He had this Atari game, and it was Atari basketball, right? So anybody that remembers that, it's kind of like almost like these two stick guys, and they're kind of going up and down the court like this, and one little, I don't even know if the ball was round, I don't know if the ball was square or something, but you're going up and down the court. So I had a friend, and man, he used to kill me every day after school. Eric would kill me. But he's one of my best friends, to this day, because no matter how many times he killed me, he would continue to, if I said reset, and he would just sit there and let me continue to play him. And like you said, Chad, just to get that one win, when you got that one win, that's all you need. Even if it was 500 games lost, when you get that one win, I just want to reset again. Even if you beat me the next 10, like it was that thing, and we kept doing it, till it got to a point that I was killing him, Chad. I was killing him. Like, I used to beat him so bad that his man would just be shaking. Like, if you get up, when you play Atari, once you get up by like 20, that man is just shaking. And I'd keep playing him and playing him and playing him. And like I said, but then, I remember kind of playing another friend years later in college in a game, and he knew that I was going to keep resetting. He would just do a bunch of talking and everything, and I'd lose, and I'd just reset. And he knew to stop. Like, if I beat him one time or I was close to beating him, he was going to shut it down, because he knew I was going to master this thing. Like, I was going to master it, no matter how many losses that I took. That the taste of victory, like, was so sweet to me, right? So when I look at business, I look at it the same way. For every lost contract, for every lost opportunity, it's like going back to when that person said, "Man, have you ever thought about quitting?" Like, there's no quit in it, right? So I just think that, I guess my write down is if you're an entrepreneur, like, you got to determine, are you built for this? Right? It's not just about making the dollar, right? To me, right? It's got to be that constant hunt that just keeps you just going and going and going, right? So, is this really what you want? Because like you said, I mean, you can go work for someone and you can make a lot of money and you can have a lot of flexibility and all that kind of, but if you're an entrepreneur and you're built for this, and I think I learned that young, that this is kind of my thing. Like I gotta be able to control this thing. I gotta be able to keep going. I'm, I guess I was looking at something sort of like when you had that blow up figure that you hit it and it goes back and then it pops back up, right? Like I feel like that, like I'm gonna pop up, like I'm going to, like you said, Chet, see the other side of this, right? And like just the desire to get to that other side. Because before you know it, if you think like that, eventually you're on the other side. You're like, man, like all that craziness is behind me. Man, like this is okay, I made it in this. So I'm even hungrier now. And I think we all have that confidence in us, right? That the true entrepreneurs, like you got this thing in you that you're going to figure it out, that you're unstoppable, right?
Yeah.
And especially if you, as you talked about, in your faith perspective in that as well, like you're like, oh, you know what, God, we got this. Like we are going to get this done. So yeah, so I write this down is look at, are you built for this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you built for this? Chad, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I was just saying, if the reality is, guys, like if the answer is no, that's completely fine, right? Like, don't fall victim to this Instagram, social media, sexy entrepreneur thing. Like, it's 99% of the time, it's a highlight reel. If you're not cut out for it, that's completely fine. Understand that about yourself, and then just focus on leveraging the skills you have to make as much money as humanly possible in another role of somebody else's company, somebody else's risks, etc. There's nothing wrong with that.
Very true. Very true. So my piece for this segment, for write this down, it goes back to something you said earlier, Chad. And it's something I say to people: choose your hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 'cause a lot of times you think that not taking the risk isn't risky, right? Because there's always risk. Like the question is really, which hard do you want?
Yep.
So if you really feel like you're called and compelled to be an entrepreneur, yeah, it's risky, it's hard, but it's also hard working in a corporate environment, not having control, having the time where someone can always come in and say your services are no longer needed. That's hard. You're talking about exercise and diet. Yeah, being out of shape and running the risk of heart attacks and other things, that's hard too. I think if you really look at the fact that it's all hard, but the question is, which hard do you want, and which hard is going to get you to where you really want to go? I think that's the true question. So you have to choose your hard. Write that down. All right. So Chad, this is one of those episodes that could easily be like 2 hours. I have so many other questions I want to ask you, but I know you got stuff to do. So, so Chad, how can the people best connect with you?
Yeah, just you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff at Chad Wittfeldt, and follow along my journey there. If anything interests you, feel free to reach out and we can have a conversation from there.
Very good.
Very good. So Chad, thank you again for everything.
Eric, I already knew once he came on with the hat.
Right.
I knew right then this thing was going someplace. When he came on with the hat, I was like, okay, let me hear what this brother right here, what he talking about. And man, yeah, look, I've been sitting here Googling how to find me a Thor hat too. I found that too. So next time you see me, I'm gonna have a Thor hat.
Absolutely. Good stuff. All right. Well, once again, this has been a fantastic episode of the 30-Minute Hour podcast. Thank you to Chad Wittfeldt for sharing all the things that he has shared. And speaking of sharing, don't forget to share the show.
Share the show, man. Share the show. Don't keep this to yourself. Share the show.
Yeah, don't keep this a secret. Make sure you share the show. And don't forget that you can go on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all those different places and subscribe. So that way you never miss an episode. And that's our time for this week on the 30-Minute Hour. And until next time, have a great one.
Take care.